Story 1. The Terminator T-1000 has to be up there. Robert Patrick gave a career-defining performance, and despite being significantly smaller and less menacing looking than Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was completely believable in the role. Story 2. Hannibal Lecter was on screen for about 15 minutes in the entire movie, yet you felt his presence the whole time. Story 3. I think Magneto is a significant character. He is not a bad person just for the sake of being bad. He has legitimate reasons for his actions, based on his own experiences. He simply wants his people to be free. Story 4. Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastard. He did not just steal every scene, he made politeness feel like a threat. That is a different level of evil. Story 5. Apocalypse from the 1990s X-Men cartoon. I am the rocks of the eternal shore. Crash into me and be broken. Story 6. This is a hard question to answer. The worst could be many things. But for me, if we are talking sheer awfulness, Dolores Umbridge. If you have only seen the movies, you are only getting half of the picture of her evil. She is the true embodiment of hatred. When people say she is worse than Voldemort, they are not far off. She certainly did not kill anyone, but she sent many people to Azkaban, where they went insane. And she did it with a smile on her face. That is after spending a year bullying the children at Hogwarts and subjecting them to real torture. I have read books about the women who really took part in the Nazi regime, and she is all of the worst ones rolled into one. Story 7. In my humble opinion, Star Trek Deep Space Nine has the best trifecta of charismatic villains. Mark Alimo as Ghoul Dukat, Louise Fletcher as Kai Wynn, and Jeffrey Combs as Wei Aun. Story 8. Kefka from Final Fantasy VI blew my mind as a kid. He is a villain who gets everything he ever wanted and reshaped the world into chaos. It was the first time I had experienced that sort of storytelling. Ozymandias from Watchmen was another one, in a vastly different medium. You think I would explain my master stroke if there remained the slightest chance of you affecting its outcome? I did it 35 minutes ago. Story 9. Walter White slowly slipped into the villain role. They made it seem like he was not the bad guy by including other bad characters, but in the end, he was ruining millions of lives with methamphetamine, murdering, lying to everyone he loved, and repeatedly putting his entire family in danger under the guise of taking care of them. Story 10. Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. Just because he is so chillingly realistic. No cheats, no superpowers. Just a stone-cold killer. Story 11. Not a film, but there is Joffrey Baratheon from Game of Thrones. Let us face it, we all cheered when he met his end. Story 12. Hitler ruined small mustaches for everyone. Seriously, just show up at work someday with a small mustache. They might fire you just for the small mustache. It is crazy. Story 13. King Joffrey in Game of Thrones. The child was so talented that it scared him how many people disliked him. He then quit acting. It is unfortunate. There is nothing like being too good at your job. Story 14. Magneto. I like villains who are sympathetic because their cause is good, but their means to their end are flawed. No one exemplifies that better than Magneto. He does not want to rule the world. He just wants his people to be free from persecution and live the life they want. However, his methods of achieving his goals are unquestionably wrong, and he assumes all humans want to see superhumans extinct. Story 15. Does the devil count? Like the biblical one? Not only has this figure been around at least as long as the Bible, but even non-religious people have heard of him. He has captivated the entire real world and a whole genre of the entertainment industry. Horror. Alone. By himself. And at least half the time he wins. Story 16. Joubert from Les Miserables and probably Sheriff Teasel from First Blood. Because what is your problem, man? A bit of a police trope? But come on. Story 17. Harvey Korman as Hedley Lamar in Blazing Saddles on the big screen. Korman plays the villain. My mind is a raging torrent, flooded with rivulets of thought, cascading into a waterfall of creative alternatives. Story 18. As a Buffy fan, I have to go with Glory. In general, however, Darth Vader is tough to beat for being menacing, having evil plans, and being the epitome of evil. Story 19. My list: 1. Heath Ledger's Joker. 2. Gary Oldman in Leon, The Professional. 3. Terminator T-1000. 4. Darth Vader. 5. Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Bastard. Story 20. Emperor Palpatine is virtually the personification of evil, manipulation, and deception. There are more dynamic and multilayered villains, but I love how focused he is on his villainy. He is the standard within a certain context, in my opinion. Story 21. Tony Soprano. Hear me out. In my opinion, Tony was always the main villain of the show. Not to say he was the only one or even the worst one, but he was definitely the main villain. Probably the most intelligent one as well, or at least had the best instincts. All Tony did was hurt, kill, steal, cheat, sleep around, and was very jealous and childish. He hurt everyone around him in different ways. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, and financially. He was selfish and only did something for someone if it served him financially or fed his ego. He always expected something in return for his kindness. But he was also an incredibly deep and complicated character. He had moments of self-awareness and exhibited genuine regret and remorse. He was capable of feeling and having genuine love for others. But as always, those feelings, no matter how profound or long-lasting, gave way to basically forget it. As he lit a cigar and enjoyed the creature comforts he acquired through his criminal actions to soothe himself back into the narcissistic sociopath he truly was. We Americans love to glorify our rebellious gangster types, especially when it comes to the mafia. But mafiosos and gangsters are not cool and have done, and still do, very real damage to society and its people. Story 22. The best is obviously Darth Vader, but I do not think I have ever seen a villain on screen I viscerally disliked as much as Joffrey Baratheon. Story 23. Donald Trump from the American presidency. We thought he was a side character with no arc, but then he started dominating. We thought Hillary Clinton was the protagonist, but like in Game of Thrones Season 1, she got her head chopped off. Kamala Harris coming in as the dark horse hero? No way. He is both an over-the-top, mustache-twirling boss and your understated, banality of evil sociopath. So far, no one has been able to touch him. Joffrey all grown up. Story 24. Palpatine, specifically episodes 1 through 6. Darth Sidious manipulated several galactic regions, created Anakin Skywalker, killed Anakin Skywalker, and nearly killed Master Yoda. Story 25. Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones is the best villain of all time. I hated him and still find it difficult to watch the actor play anyone else without automatically disliking them. Rose the Hat from Dr. Sleep is an interesting character as well. I always wanted to know more about her backstory. Story 26. Thanos was the only one who was both a villain and a hero, if you consider his perspective. So yes, Thanos. Story 27. Comic book and film. Joker. Real life and reality TV Trump. Stuck in the Middle with You song by Steelers Wheel. Anime. Numi Seiji from Excel World. An irredeemable little person. Story 28. That is a tough one. There are many iconic villains. I would say the Joker stands out as completely unpredictable and always challenging the hero in deep psychological ways. Who is your pick? Story 29. Any villain played by Vincent Price would likely have some claim to the title, but my money is on Undertaker Waldo Trumbull from the Comedy of Terrors 1963, who murders people at night so he can get paid to bury them the next morning. Not the most spectacular of plans, but Price is clearly having a blast with the role and manages to make Trumbull both hilarious and menacing, often at the same time. Story 30. I always felt Hans Gruber defined the villain who was good enough to root for. But who is the bad guy who gets away with it and you are like, yeah, I'm down with that. Kaiser Soze fits this bill. Then there is the one where you're like, no, and that's John Doe in Seven. And then there is the Joker in The Dark Knight who wins the crowd over with the pencil trick. Story 31. The Xenomorph from Alien. I can't believe we don't yet have those here. Utterly terrifying. The first one really is the highlight. They are still scary in the other movies, but not as much. Story 32. It is unfortunate that Netflix stopped the Marvel shows because there were two greatest of all-time villains. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. David Tennant's Kilgrave. Story 33, Mr. Doctor Doom. Just wait until the world gets their Marvel Cinematic Universe taste of him. You thought Thanos was good? Brother. Story 34. The Korgon in Highlander, played by Clancy Brown, is a sensational piece of acting and one of the most compelling villains. If it had been in a bigger movie, it would be at the top of this list. Story 35. Kefka. Dr. Doom. I always forget the name, but Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. The antagonist of the manga Monster, which I do not want to spoil if you want to read it. The Joker. Story 36. I watched the 1990s miniseries It when I was a kid. In the following months, I was afraid of the sewers in the street, sinks, clowns, and worst of all, the shower. I had a lot of soap in my eyes because I was always keeping them open. Story 37. Any villain character who starts as just another bad guy and ends up being a troubled antagonist is compelling. It is a bonus if their actions ultimately benefit the main character. Story 38. Elliot Marston, played by Alan Rickman in Quigley Down Under. Ivan Drago. Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator. King Longshanks, King Edward I in Braveheart. Story 39. Mao Zedong. Oh, you said best, not biggest. Thanos. Man, he messed up that universe for a short time. Story 40. Ghoul Dukat. Arguably one of the most detailed and nuanced villains in fiction. He is intelligent, cunning, charming, and even downright friendly to the point of being completely disarming. There are moments of genuine warmth and good in him, but he continually swings back to evil. This becomes most apparent in an episode where he recruits Kira to help rescue his daughter from the Breen. What follows is a 45-minute roller coaster as the layers of his motivations are peeled back one at a time, culminating in a single redeeming moment when he chooses to put his daughter's well-being over his career and even his marriage. Story 41. Mysterio convinced Wolverine to slaughter most of the X-Mansion in Old Man Logan. Certainly not the most evil villain, but that is certainly very evil. Story 42. I love Max from the first Mission Impossible movie. Devilishly charming, beautiful, flirtatious, dangerous, and posh. Story 43. The evil Lord Frisia. Pure hatred, incredible strength, egomaniacal genocidal maniac. Grew up as a rich, spoiled brat. Constantly kills his own. No compromise. Only death. He is also articulate, calculated, cunning, and destroys planets. What more can you ask for? Story 44. Baron Zemo from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They managed to rework his storyline, leading to a very justifiable civil war between Captain America and Iron Man. Story 45. Crowley Supernatural. Growth, depth, cheeky charm. I love everything about him. I am absolutely Team Crowley. I know he is not a villain, but the original Death in Supernatural deserved more love than that. Who Death? Story 46. Lot of competition. Dennis Hopper as Frank Booth in Blue Velvet is pretty terrifying. Darth Vader is classic. I was pleasantly surprised that King Jaffe of Coming to America, also known as James Earl Jones, voiced him. Story 47. Gary Oldman as Dracula. Such an amazing performance. He absolutely outshone everyone else in the movie. Story 48. Recently, Thanos was brilliantly introduced over many films, portrayed well both from an acting and computer-generated imagery point of view, and he had some good ideas. Story 49. I like Ozymandias because of his awareness of the foolishness of revealing his secrets through a monologue. Story 50. Not the best, but another option is Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. To be almost universally considered more vile than the actual main villain is quite a feat. Story 51. No one mentioned Biff Tannen? The guy was literally on the verge of destroying the space-time continuum because he wanted to harm a girl in his high school. Story 52. Do yourself a favor and see Vampire Assassin by Ron Hall. The movie is kind of cheesy, but the vampire villain is sinister. Instead of killing the hero, he just toys around with him because he can. Story 53. Tywin Lannister and Dolores Umbridge are both very believable as incredibly unpleasant persons. It probably helps that other villains in their books are like magical Hitlers in one case and the most crazed maniacs in the other. This makes them seem much more real. Story 54. The Uncle Claudius from Hamlet inspired much of what gives modern villains their edge, so I would say him. For a more pop culture relevant example, though, 100% the Joker. Story 55. Feathers McGraw, Wallace, and Gromit. Not one line. How do we know he is the villain? Because he looks the part. Even Anton, what's-his-face, had to blab to cashiers and strangers. Feathers was flawless and will probably be out on bail in no time. His legal defense is considerably more sound. Oh, they made a movie in 2004 and I missed it. Story 56. You see, in their last moments, people show you who they really are. Thanos accepts his defeat without saying a single word, just quietly sits there and turns to dust. Story 57. Amon Goeth from Schindler's List was real and far worse in real life. I do not think any other villain comes close. Story 58. Hans from Frozen is so good at hiding his villainy that he even fooled a large portion of the audience, who still argue to this day that it is a bad reveal despite there objectively being a hint that their bias made them ignore. Story 59. Steppenwolf from the Snyder Cut did not want to rule the world or sit on a throne. All he wanted was to redeem himself and go home. It is that simple, relatable, and sympathetic. Story 60. Not the best, maybe, but Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones is right up there based on the satisfaction I got from his demise. Story 61. When I was growing up, Darth Vader and the Daleks were two of the scariest villains. This was before the prequels made Darth Vader look like a whiny, spoiled brat. Story 62. I have to say Scar was successful in his plan and reigned for years. He killed his brother, convinced his nephew that it was their fault, and turned a group of hyenas into a powerful army. Eventually, it caught up to him, but only after ruling for years. Story 63. Hades from Disney's Hercules. He is not only charismatic, but also very cunning. When he needs to take care of business himself, he gets it done in a matter of seconds, such as convincing Hercules to give up his strength while using Meg as bait. Story 64. Satan from Paradise Lost is the single most complex protagonist and antagonist I have ever read. The idea that one's own mind can be a hell or heaven haunts me to this day. Story 65. I love the villain from The Mask. I enjoy him in other movies too, but not enough to remember his name. Story 66. I see a lot of Magneto, so I will raise and say Dr. Doom. He is the poster child for comic book villain. He is a brutal ruler of a European country and people love him. A genius in various fields of science, he is also a practitioner of the mystic arts. Not only that, but he has ruled over Earth and the multiverse multiple times. He is currently the Sorcerer Supreme in Marvel Comics. When Doom does win, he doesn't do it out of sheer evil. He does it because he believes he is the only one who can make it better, and a lot of the time he actually does bring some good. Sure, it was done through nefarious means, but to Victor, his actions justify the means. To me, the most effective villain is one whose goals and practices actually get accomplished and they do make things slightly better. Story 67. The way Heath Ledger portrayed the Joker in The Dark Knight. Almost no evil clown, 100% chaos. The character just wants to see the world burn. I can understand evil, but I cannot understand chaos. That is why he is the best villain ever. Story 68. Satan, or whichever variant you prefer of the entities controlling the negative afterlife, has convinced the majority of the planet to believe in hell. Story 69. We may need to define best. Jack Gleason, who played Joffrey in Game of Thrones, performed his role exceptionally well. As a character, he was highly hateable and embodied the tempestuous attitude we would expect from an entitled and smug product of incest. He simply did not care about anyone or anything and literally did what he wanted, which could define him as one of the worst villains ever. It is tough, though, because he was a whiny and annoying character who would get under your skin, yet still, the character destroyed everything he did not like, following the villain's modus operandi. Story 70. Cersei Lannister. Her revenge against Ilaria Sand was the most horrendous thing I have ever heard of. Story 71. Joffrey Lannister. The actor played the role so well that people thought he was really like that in real life, and I totally understand. He even looked like he was the product of incest. Story 72. Just to get her on the list, since I know nobody else is going to say it. Mother got hell from Tangled, Disney's Rapunzel. Story 73. Joker. It is not even close. He is a nihilistic villain solely for the purpose of being a villain. He has no agenda other than to tear the whole system down. He is not in it for himself at all. Story 74. Vaz Montenegro from Far Cry 3. He is not the main villain, but he is the one who took the spotlight. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.